listening to the Traditional Outdoors Podcast.
Greetings, everyone. I'd like to take just a moment to say thank you for listening to the Traditional Outdoors Podcast. For those of you that have left us a review or rating, we do greatly appreciate it. And if you've not already done so, or if this is your first time listening, please take a moment after the podcast to leave us a review on iTunes or Stitcher. This really helps us get the word out about the podcast and keeps us motivated to continue bringing you content. Now, with that out of the way, I'm your host, Steve Angel, and I'm joined by my co-host, Nick View. How's it going, buddy?
Oh, it's going pretty good, man. It's going pretty good. Didn't get sick. We got turkey season coming. Been shooting some arrows, getting ready for that. And, I got a new guitar. Been picking on that a little bit. Other than that, family's healthy. Everything's good.
Most importantly, you have escaped the influenza.
The influenza has been escaped. Although my boss did have to go to the ER and she had the bacterial infection. So she's been out for like a week and a half.
Yeah, that's bad.
Yeah, it was bad, real bad. She is on a lot of medication. But other than that, yeah, man, I didn't get it. Knock on wood, whatever I can find. But yeah, we're all good here. Good weather. Yeah. Been pretty good lately.
I know our mutual buddy Tom Jurgensen has come down with, I don't know if it's the influenza, but, I was hunting with him last week, and he left hog camp, headed up to the Compton's Big Game Classic up in Pittsburgh, and seems like he contracted a bug there and is currently feeling under the weather. So hopefully he gets to feeling better soon, and the rest of us continue to avoid the influenza. We got spring coming just around the corner. It's really actually pretty much already spring here. It was warm in hog camp last week, and it's really just, I guess it's kind of starting to show up everywhere. And with that, I really thought it would be a good time to spend a little time talking about turkeys and turkey hunting. So with that, tonight we've got a special guest with us on the other line. Mr. John Buchin is joining us. For anyone that doesn't know John is the current president of the Michigan Longbow Association. He's also the owner and operator of Crooked Talon Game Calls, and he's a really good friend of both Nick and myself. And most importantly for today's conversation, John eats, drinks, breathes, sleeps, and dreams about chasing turkeys, and I know this firsthand because I've spent some time in the woods with him. So welcome to the podcast, John. How's it going?
It's going pretty good. Getting ready for spring. It is not spring here yet. It's threatening. We're kind of in the season of SNIRT, which is not quite snow, not quite dirt. Turkeys are starting to gobble though. That's a good thing. Getting ready for a lot of the spring outdoor activities.
So our turkey season actually started just last week. We'll get into that a little bit more as we go through this. But now, when does your turkey season in Michigan open?
April 23rd, I think. I want to say it's that Monday. So it's the last full week of April, and then the all the way through the month of May. But
okay, so you about another month. You've still got to sit back and just rub your fingers together waiting.
I was just pretty much I wait. I get to watch all these guys that have already started down in Florida, Georgia, and a few other places, and it's tough. It's tough, especially when your months of February, March, and April are pretty well booked. That you're not able to go have some fun with them guys greeting spring early.
Yeah, it's a bummer that we can only put in for one season too.
Yeah. I wish Michigan would change that, but I don't know.
Yeah, but you put in, you apply, you go with what season you want, which area, and then weather could totally wipe you out. You're kind of at the mercy of it. And John and I have had this conversation many times about how it's kind of lame that you can't at least get a turkey in another zone, or something. But
you guys also have a fall and a spring season too, right?
Yeah, the fall season is pretty generous as far as it lets you start September 15th and runs for an entire month up to November 14th. But the spring season, Michigan is the 8th in the nation as far as successful turkey hunting. And our turkey population's getting to the point now where I think they could open it up a little bit, maybe do something with maybe an archery season. I know I'd hate to say opening up a second tag, but doing something where they'd open up a little more time because, like Nick was talking about, we put in for especially public land, you have to put in for your a specific season. And the way they break it down is you get to choose the first week, the second week, or the month of May hunt. And I have always gone for one of the first 2 weeks, and since I decided in the last couple of years to dedicate that hunt to longbow only, I've really pushed for the first week because the turkeys really aren't messed with that much. It just gives a little bit of an advantage to us because we're already implementing our own boundaries, weapon-wise, to make it a little tougher. And, if they were to open that up for us by adding a week, I'd hate to say earlier, but if they were to add a week or just make it a 2-week season at the beginning, that would be super sweet. But that's not here or there yet. Hopefully sometime in the future they will.
Nope. We just got to take advantage of it and have fun.
Exactly.
We get our licks in, though. I mean, we only had... actually, I kind of screwed up this year because we were talking about when to put in, and I realized that I have got a wedding that weekend, so I can't even hunt that weekend. I have to hunt a couple days out of the week this year, like Monday and like Thursday. So that's kind of weird, but anyway, we only really went at it together twice last year, but yeah. For I don't know, the bulk of the end of the afternoon, and we had a lot of action, so I think we'll be fine.
Yeah, it should be. I don't think winter was heavy, but it was so spotty that I don't think it affected the turkey population much. And I saw a lot of birds when I was out muzzleloader hunting, and I got to get out this weekend, and I'm hoping that the snow stays away that they're calling for. But I'd like to get out this weekend and see. Just what's going on out there, what kind of numbers we're looking at, and start getting a game plan for a few weeks from now.
So, John, let's step back just a little bit. We kind of jumped right in about turkey hunting, but I would like to get a little bit more from you regarding your background in the outdoors, and I guess just give everybody a high level of how you got started in the outdoors. Obviously, I think turkey hunting may be your biggest passion. Maybe not. I don't know. But, which activities do you enjoy? Which do you enjoy the most? And go from there.
All right. Well, I got started in the outdoors. I was pretty young. I was 12 or 14, deer hunting. Opening day for the firearm season in Michigan is quite a holiday. And, as a youngster, I was pretty well wrapped up in it then. When I got out of high school, I kind of fell away from it a little bit. But once I started dating my wife, her brothers kind of got me reacquainted with the outdoors again. And Diana's brother, Bob, actually is the one that really gave me my first bite of turkey hunting, and since that first hunt with him, I've been pretty well hooked. I've been hunting turkeys for almost 15 years, 16, 17, 18 years now, which it's a mere paragraph compared to some guys, and for some of the guys just getting started, it's quite a few years under the belt. But that's my first and foremost favorite kind of hunting. I'm very type A when it comes to turkey hunting, as Nick can attest to. I don't like sitting around much waiting for them. Which also, which can it's a good trade to have as a turkey hunter, but as a deer hunter, it may hamper you a bit.
You mean you like getting out and actually walking around, John?
I tend to move.
So obviously that's a bit of an inside joke between the three of us, and I'll just leave it with in the 2016 season, we actually threatened to bring rope into the woods for the 2017 season to tie John to a tree because John likes to go and look for turkeys.
Yeah, and I've threatened several times to just turkey hunt and let you guys deer hunt.
So John, when it comes to hunting turkeys, what's this is a loaded question. I'm trying to figure out exactly how I want to ask it, but let's start with what's your preferred weapon for hunting turkeys?
Well, right now, if you were to ask me that today, which you are, right now it's the longbow. The number of turkeys I have harvested with the longbow is at 0. It's been a lot of fun. I've been doing the fall turkey chase for about 6 years now with the longbow, and this will be my second or third year with the longbow for spring. Second year, and I think Nick and I probably could have been successful last year. We just starting to kind of figure the thing out. The differences between hunting with a shotgun and hunting with a longbow. There was a couple of moments where our fingers were on the string, and I know I had it pulled back once. It's getting there. As far as if you were to take that longbow away from me, I have a favorite Mossberg 12 gauge in the gun cabinet that has put a lot of tail fans on the wall. But in the interest of trying to achieve a higher level of hunter prowess, I guess if you want to call it that, I'm trying to dedicate my hunting to pretty much using the longbow for all of it right now.
Well, and to add on that, I mean, you're not what I would call your average turkey hunter either, John. I mean, as for the few years I've hunted with you, you're not the kind of guy that puts a pop-up blind up and a lot of decoys and, plays that game. I think part of the reason is because you're hunting a lot of public land or you're hunted private land that's opened up to the public. And in the area that you're hunting, that's not really somewhere you can just leave a blind up or something like that, or really hunt them that way. But you're definitely more of a run and gun guy, and you like to call, and you like boots on the ground, and you like to work flocks. And I mean, we've had a blast doing that over the last couple of seasons. But yeah, why don't you? I mean, because it's really, from what I've noticed with hunting with you, is that I mean the weapon is only really a small part of it. I mean, it's you definitely change. When you're hunting with a bow, and we've got to get closer, and we have to disguise our movement when we're shooting and make sure our arrows aren't sticking out or anything like that. And I do think if we would have had shotguns last year, that you and I would have both got a bird. I'm pretty positive that would have happened. But why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of your approach to turkey hunting and how you came to hunt turkeys that way, that boots on the ground, running and gunning kind of way.
My brother-in-law, first of all, he wasn't much for sitting and waiting. If that turkey's not talking, it's hard to sit. It's a very interactive hunt. I'd like to go do elk one day because it can be very similar. It's more of a chess match than it is like deer hunting. Deer hunting can be a chess match, but that's you're waiting, you're anticipating things. With turkeys, it's more of a you're getting in and having a conversation with them. There can be it's almost like war. It's and there's no real I don't want to say no real tricks to it. It's you got to know the ground. I mean, you got to know the land that you're hunting. You got to study the maps. You got to get your feet out there. You got to see what's going on. It's watching the birds. Even though your roost setup may not work, pay attention to what they're doing. Watch where they're going. When you're moving, you can't really parallel your movements with them so much as you have to make big circles around and try to anticipate where they're going. And in doing that, you're using the calls more or less just to keep soundings or tabs on their location. That can be tricky, as Nick has learned, because some of the areas that I hunt, they tend to have several different flocks out there. So it's one of the areas that the state actually started the turkey reintroduction program. So we're pretty blessed as far as that goes. But that's the biggest part of it. And then woodsmanship, knowing where you can walk, knowing how you have to walk, taking that extra little bit of gumption to get it at say 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the morning to slip out, and being able to wait out an hour and a half in the dark to listen for that first gobble. There's times inadvertently where I've ended up walking right underneath of them because they've hopped from one ridge line to another, probably from an owl flying overnight, or other hunters going out there and doing what they call putting them to bed, watching them go to roost and having that hunter actually spook them out of their roost to another roost site. So that's the biggest thing. And I have a hard time sitting and waiting for that turkey when I know that I can get after him. It's real hard to explain, but for those that know, they know exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh, and it's a blast. We were working 2 different flocks of birds last year, actually 3 at one point, and we were all over the place, and it was a blast. I don't think I've had that much fun hunting ever. That's just a lot of fun, and watching you call and figuring out have different toms from different flocks hit, and stuff like that was really a trip. And doing it that way, there's nothing like it. I don't know if I could do it from the blind after doing it like that. And it's definitely a harder way that we're doing it, but it's not like we didn't have our opportunities. We just didn't have a golden opportunity. And
I did, and I blew it.
Well, so John and I, what happened was John and I got set up on this. We were working this one flock on this ridge, and everywhere we went, they kept coming and they kept going and coming back and going, and we couldn't figure out what was going on, and all we could figure was that there was too much brush or some kind of geographical divide between us that they couldn't cross in. And so we kept working our way around this brush, but there was a lot of brush, and we were using this ridge as a way to get around them. And we finally got up. It was this big bowl, and by the time we got up on this big bowl, we realized where they were. They were down the other side, and kind of by this old fence. So John set up on one side, and I set up on the other, and we were on top of this ridge, and we had a couple decoys out, and we were trying to get these birds on the bottom of this ridge to come in. And what happened with John is he got what we would call rope-a-doped, where he thought the turkey were gonna come in a certain way, and then went behind a tree. And what happened after that, John? Because you were gonna draw on this thing right as he went behind the tree and get him on the other side, but
we're sitting there, and Nick is off to my right about 7 yards. I was actually hoping that he would get a shot because of where the gobbles were coming from. They would have had to get through him to get to me. And the bird, we heard car traffic going up and down the road because we got gotten to a point where we were in earshot of the road again, the dirt road. I heard a bird getting close, and then I heard the famed running turkey footsteps running away with putting, which is their alarm sound when they're running off, and that was the game over sound. So I was throwing my hat down in disgust when from behind a 2-inch sapling, this turkey, which was closer to me than I was close. It was closer to me than I was to Nick. it was probably about, I don't know, it was less than 5 yards, and he stepped out from behind that sapling, and I got drawn back, and the turkey disappeared back behind the sapling. Just looked about like a Bugs Bunny cartoon episode, and that was it.
So Steve, here was my point of view on this whole situation, because what happened was, as I was on top, I was over the cusp of this hill. The turkeys came in on the bottom, and I could not see over the top of this hill. I was back in some ironwoods, like trees, and I was sitting cross-legged, and I had my bow in my lap, and John and I were taking turns calling, but I had John to my left, and I could see him really well. Like, he wasn't very far away from me, so I knew I couldn't see the birds. He kept on pointing like, hey, they're right there. I couldn't see them, so I kind of just put my bow down and watched John. And when the whole footstep thing happened, he looked at he had a face mask on, and his hat. And he turned and looked at me, and he was all red-faced, and he brought down his bandana or his face mask, and he gave me the SOB, really blatant with his mouth kind of thing, after he had drawn. And as soon as he looked back up, the turkey was right there again, looking at him. And he never got...
I could tell you the color of its eyes.
That's one of the things that we've learned, like... They never do what you want them to. They're the quirkiest thing ever, these birds, and they never go the way you want. They never end up where you think they're going to end up, and they never leave when you think they leave. There's always something there. I mean, you always stalk in, you always stalk out. And I guess that's what makes it so fun, because everybody thinks turkeys are so dumb, but sometimes even the dumb ones are lucky. So... you don't really have that issue, but I mean, you can try to peg them, but it's never going to be perfect for you. But it's a blast. It's a blast. And watching John call is fun too. And John makes his own calls. I've got a call. Steve, I think you got one of John's calls, don't you?
I do. I've got a box call that John made for me.
Yeah, and I love pot calls. And John, what kind of got you into making calls and calling, actually? Like, who taught you how to call? How'd you get into it? And what made you want to start making calls?
Well, by trade I do construction, and I enjoy doing a lot of furniture crafting, finer stuff, and it's never a lucrative adventure, but it's fun. I just like working with wood. And as far as making calls, I remember finding a website where I was watching a couple of guys turn their own stuff, and I thought, that might be kind of fun. Plus, it would be icing on the cake to be able to take a bird with something that I had made. And so I first started making box calls around. I think I started making box calls back in 2001. It was the year right after I started hunting turkeys, and a lot of that was, we would go into Cabela's or some of the other stores, and you could see the prices on them, and I'm like, wow, I got all this beautiful wood at home. I can just figure out how to make it and make it sound right. That's the trick. And then after you make your first one and make it sound right, you have to make it your own. There's a lot of guys that make calls out there. The biggest trick is not just making it sound right, but making the call not really stand out, but it's your thumbprint. You know what I mean? There's not much you can do with a 4-inch round circle of wood, but to make it different than everybody else's. But it's the little things, the little details that can set you apart from somebody else. And right now I just do it pretty much on a end. I might make a few here and there for sale. And other than that, it's all just an order here or there. So I don't do a lot of mass production. Might be fun in the future to do something like that, but right now it's just a as wanted basis.
And you make calls other than just turkey calls too, right?
Yeah, correct. I do I do grunt calls. I'll do some duck calls, wood duck calls, mallard. I've made some goose calls, a few predator calls, not a lot.
Still waiting on my squirrel call.
Yeah. I got home tonight and I actually had to flip those guts out of my way. They're there. I've got the wood and everything sitting there. I just gotta find time to get to it.
Not that we'll ever see squirrels when we want to see squirrels, or shoot squirrels when we want to shoot squirrels.
Right. That's right.
This is I got a kind of a question for both of you guys. So I'm gonna and really, Nick, I guess you know this about me, but I'm gonna make a confession. I'm not a big turkey hunting fan. It's spring rolls around, turkey season comes in, and I usually get out once or twice, and my turkey hunting usually consists of, I'll call a little while first thing in the morning, then I get bored, and the next thing I know, I'm either scouting for deer season, or I'm looking for feral hogs on the local WMAs. So I hear you guys talk about what you're doing really gets you excited, and I have no frame of reference. So am I doing it wrong? Since it's obviously not getting me fired up, or what are your thoughts there?
Well, you might just have to come up on a spring, or if I can figure out a way to get down there during a spring, so I can call for you. It's I don't know. And some guys just can't stand it, and I don't hold any of that against them. It's like, I don't know. I've gotten to the point in my life where, I enjoy all different kinds of aspects of everything for what it is. But I have a lot of friends who just cannot. They don't like deer hunting. And then I know some guys that there's people that they can't. They just don't hunt. I can't say that there's anything wrong. It just may not be your flavor. It's kind of like guys that like super dark beer and guys that like Bud Light.
Well, and here's my point of reference for that is, I guess it's been a couple years ago, was on a North Georgia WMA with my longbow, no blind, had gone in that morning and knew where I had some turkeys on the roost, listened to them fly down, started calling, had a tom come straight to me, and as he was walking behind a tree, I actually, got my bow almost to full draw, and he caught me on the last little bit of my draw as he stepped out of the tree and took off, and I never even got the arrow off. But it dawned on me after all that happened, my heart rate never even got I didn't get excited about it, and I just at that point in time wondered if it wasn't something that I should be out in the woods hunting. So,
yeah, I remember.
Well, I mean, you got a pretty full, you got a pretty full schedule too, though. So I mean, you get to hunt. We don't have hogs here, so that's probably a good thing as far as I go, because I have a very addictive personality. But you get to hunt hogs. You've been able to go do a pronghorn hunt. You get some killer whitetail hunting. I know you got some adventures coming up this year. Hunting turkeys for some guys could be real tame. I know guys that they were pretty well worked up with turkey hunting. One of my brother-in-laws, as a matter of fact, my one brother-in-law Bob loved it. My brother-in-law Roger, he liked to go out and video me once in a while, but other than that, he'd care less. He'd go sit in a boat and fish for bluegills in the spring, let alone just watch the turkeys fly out of trees from a shoreline somewhere. But yeah, it's when you get different opportunities, it might not be just something that tickles your fancy.
Well, and Steve, like, if it revs Steve's engine, he'd be out there. I mean, he'd find a way. And be really into it, and whatever Steve does, he does 110%. So I think it's just one of those things. It definitely isn't. Maybe it's just not for some people. I mean, I knew it from the first gobble that I wanted to hunt turkeys. From the first time I went out into the woods by myself, not really knowing anything, and hit that first morning gobble, I knew right away that this was different than deer hunting or any other kind of hunting that I've ever done. And I don't know what it is about turkeys that I like. I'm a lot bolder when I turkey hunt. I think that's part of it. Like, I feel like when I'm hunting deer, that's like an expectation. Like, I want, you know, I really want to get a deer and the meat and everything else. And then with turkeys, I always feel like they're so hard to hunt that there's no expectation for me to get a bird. Like, I can get a little bolder with it. And the other thing,
so because it's harder, you feel like there's less pressure on you?
I kind of do. It's that, but there's something else to it too. It's that, you know, the deer with their noses, they can bust you so many different ways and not be anywhere near you.
Well, for one, you're trading fighting off scents and lingering scents, for 10 power binoculars on a brain the size of a peanut.
Yeah, you really are. You really are.
I mean, it's and the color thing is more. I mean, with deer, you can get away with your wolves and stuff like that. With turkeys, you can a little bit, like I've done with this fall, but if you are not blended in perfectly to your surroundings, they will pick you off.
But you can trick them though. I mean, you can get around them. You can move if you move the right way, if you move smart. And I think Michigan's terrain being hilly and ridgy and stuff like that. I mean, and where we've been hunting, I'm like, we're not like if we just had turkeys out in the middle of a field and we were like, that wouldn't work out. But where we're in small timber clearings and stuff. So there's usually something that can cover us in and out.
It's hard to put a finger on what the drive is. It's a very intangible thing to be able to describe. But if you want to get an essence of it, I would recommend everyone to read Colonel Tom Kelly's The 10th Legion. That it explains it in a very funny way throughout an entire book. It's very hard to describe, but it's I can't put my finger on it, but it's just something.
Well, and if you get the audio book and hear the Colonel read it, it's even better, in my opinion. And it's not expensive. If you go to his website, you just look up Colonel Tom Kelly or the 10th Legion. If you go to his website, his books, it's like $20, I think, for the audio book. Or you can get a download and it's cheaper. And it's something. It's just a great book, and it'll get your engine revved up for turkey hunting for sure, or at least curious about it. But the pursuit, like John is saying, is that there's something about the bird. I mean, for so many years of my life, I just thought they were stupid birds. I'm like, they're just dumb. They get hit all the time. They fan out in front of cars and they get hit on the highway. They're stupid, you know. And some are stupid, but there's just something about them when you see them puff out, or when you see them fight, or when you see them or hear them. And maybe that's part of it. Maybe talking to them is part of it. Maybe that's part of the allure for me.
Well, the part for me too is there's zero concern for me about, is it big enough? Do I have to start figuring out my ear measurements, my ear to ear measurements, that, you know what I mean? A turkey at any phase of the game is a trophy in its own right. In my opinion, that's just my opinion. I don't care if a guy takes down a 1-year-old Jake, or if it's a 3 or 4-year-old Tom. It's a trophy. The fact that you've duped this bird into coming into close range, and by close range I mean anything within 20 yards, to meet either a squadron of lead shot or a tip of a broadhead. That's quite an accomplishment.
Mm-hmm. I've missed them with both.
So that's one place where I could definitely say I'm ahead of you both. I have never missed a turkey.
Steve, I remember, I swear, one of those times where I was first starting getting into turkey hunting, and we were texting or something like that, and I kept you were turkey hunting, and I swear you were sending me messages that was like, this is the dumbest thing in the world. I don't know why I'm out here. I'm wasting my time.
Probably, but now I will say this, and I don't know what it's like in Michigan. I mean, I've deer hunted in Michigan, and my experience where we have hunted in Michigan on public land has actually, in my opinion, been very good, with the exception of one situation that Tom ran into this past season. But it's not. I haven't seen it as far as being overly crowded or anything. I think it's the public land, especially near where I'm at, which is the suburbs of Atlanta or just north of Atlanta. So I think we can have more crowds at times than I've seen there. But it's different when it's turkey season. I mean, probably that same season that you're talking about. I hit a call early that morning, and one turkey gobbled back at me, and then it was like the woods came alive. And it only took a few minutes for me to realize the woods came alive because I was surrounded by other hunters, and all of them started trying to call in that one tom.
If it was even a real turkey.
That sounds like that sounds like the opening day of firearm deer season here.
Yeah, exactly. Tom said, or John said, some experience with drive-by callers, haven't you, John?
Oh yeah, it happens. It happens.
We had that last year. Actually, we had
mushroom hunters.
John mushroom hunters. Exactly. We had a guy last year that we had. So we worked that bowl that I was talking about, and on the tail end of that hunt, we had the flock. Like, it was a couple Toms or Jakes, and we actually had them pinched over by the road, working back towards where we were parked. So we were going to stalk back, and we had a really good chance getting them in this hollow if we took the top of this ridge. And then they just shut up, and we couldn't figure out what happened. And we got back, and sure enough, this guy that had been driving up and down the road watching us, was out looking for mushrooms, and our birds were nowhere near where they were. And that's just going to happen. I mean, that area we hunt, we were kind of all over the place anyway. We weren't really in one specific area, and he's got every right to be there. But that was one of those times. And then the other thing that we were dealing with the same thing you were, Steve, where there's always somebody that's driving around with a call or on their back porch, and they hear a bird or they hear somebody calling, and they're immediately on their box call, Mach 10 on their box call, doing SOS signals across the woods, trying to get these birds to come to them. And John actually had not a major confrontation with one last year, but he had a really good stock out of bird in a field, and an old man with a box call messed that up in a Ford. But
so
it's going to happen.
One question that I would have for, or I guess another question I would have for the two of you is it just my perception, or does the gadgetry trend that we see in deer hunting, where there's it's always about the latest gadget, the ozonics or the latest broadhead, or all the what I'm talking about, the gadgetry is. I don't see that as much with turkey hunting. I mean, it seems to be, to me, a bit more, I don't want to use the word traditional, but it just seems like it's not as much commercialization or marketing goes on towards turkey hunting like it does deer hunting.
I will say that yes and no. it's got a pretty heavy duty tradition to it. You know, if you read the books by Tom Kelly, you'll hear stories about back when the turkeys were pretty much on the verge of extinction in some areas, and if guys saw footprints in the dirt road, they would cover it up. They're very, and I think it's because of that. I think it's because that the turkeys were so close to being, you know, the population was so decimated that guys have really gone to the point where they really try to protect it. And but there are a lot of things. In the early 2000s, there was a lot of gizmo stuff that was really flying all over the place in the markets. A lot of the call companies, like the bigger ones, like Primo's, Loman, and they all had their little thing that they would come out with for that year or the next couple of years. You know, and it all worked. It was the thing, is there wasn't really anything bad about it. But there's some, I think what has happened, instead of being gear driven, there's been more of a tactical change where you're starting to get a lot more guys doing what they call reaping and stuff like that. And it takes type A personality in turkey hunting to a whole new level. It's a debate for another day, but that's kind of where they're at. I think what happens with deer hunting, and this isn't, I think what happens with deer hunting is you end up with so much time on the stand that you're not really doing, you know, you might do a call here and there, but your interaction levels are few and far between, that depending on the ground that you're hunting. But you know, there has to be something to pass that time, and I don't know. Humans tend to be gear driven. I mean, I see cool stuff in the traditional community, and I'm like, hey, that's pretty cool. I'd like to get one of those. I think every niche has its little gear gizmo stuff, and we all like it. I mean, let's be honest. There's cool stuff out there. It's just like tools, man. it's like drills. It's like saws. There's, you know, they put a laser on a saw, and yeah, I gotta have a laser guided saw.
You can never have enough pot calls, in my opinion, for one. Right. But you know, people get. I mean, I have seen, when I first got into this, I did see there was a lot of debate on what shot, what chokes, what guns.
There still is.
Yep, and I mean, you know, some people like single shot stuff. You know, it's there's all kinds of. In fact, I didn't even know that people talked about all this stuff. I thought it was pretty standard that people just went after one with a shotgun and a box call and some decoys. And I mean, some decoys today are super good. The super realistic ones.
They're night and day difference from when I got started doing this.
Oh man, I mean, and you're talking about paying, you know what, like $500 for a tom. I mean, like crazy good decoys, and I mean, where John and I basically have like rubber, like we shoot at them when we're not using them.
The old two-sided foam ones.
The ones that sway in the wind like a rooster, one of those roosters on the top of the barn. Spinning around. But
I got a set of flambeaus, and they work. I mean, they're realistic enough, but they've gotten to the point now where they're taxidermy quality, and it's you know, if you're hunting with enough turkeys that see enough people, that may make a difference. I mean, there's been a few instances where I use a decoy here and there, but for the most part, I don't. I mean, there's one in my vest, but it's pretty much there for the most part in my vest. I don't deploy it out very often.
I think it's just a skillful endeavor. I mean, it's kind of like, I mean, it's almost like waterfowling too. I see it as like bird hunting in general, or upland bird hunting, anything like bird hunting in general just seems it's so difficult anyway, and it's such a gentleman's sport, right? Like I mean, I know like upland fowl is. It just seems like, and I should say gentlemen or gentlewomen, but it's, you know, it's just one of those, I don't know. It seems like whenever you're on any turkey hunting forums or anything like that, they're talking about like, beautiful shotguns and calls and things of that nature. And there's just like there's like an element to it that's just different than deer hunting is. I can't put my finger on it. And John, you've been around it longer than me, but and I know you mentioned reaping, and we probably should define what reaping actually is, because a lot of people probably don't know what it is.
That's where a guy is basically using a full body tom decoy, or at least a fan, and is basically they call it reaping or fanning, and it's where they take the fan and they will actually crawl across a field using that fan to hide behind. And the turkeys are tough to hunt, but they do have brains like peanuts, so they see a fan and they don't their eyes are on one side of their head, so their depth perception and their perception of, hey, that fan is 6 feet in the air, doesn't really buy into their brain that well. And so these guys are using these fans to walk or crawl behind, and they get within feet of these turkeys. And the turkeys are actually in the height of the mating season, or they're battling for number one. So you are almost shooting a turkey in self-defense at that point. I can't say that it wouldn't be an exciting event, but I'm from that old school. I like to try to get them to come to me, looking for that lady that's calling to them.
Mm-hmm. Well, plus you like your life, and in Michigan you do have a good chance of getting killed. You're going to go hunt like that.
That's the other part of it.
I think where I was trying to go to with what I was saying about gentlemen and women's sport, I think sport's the key. I think bird hunting to me, turkeys, upland hunting, fowl, I mean, all of that seems more like a sport. Like it's not as much a means for sustenance. There's easier ways to get sustenance than to kill a lot of ducks or one turkey or partridge or whatever you're going for. Where when you're going after a deer, I mean, that's substantial. Like you get a deer, like you're set with meat for a while. Like you can have meals of meat, not one meal, many meals of meat, where it's more fun to actually go after birds, the actual going after the birds. I mean, it's a challenge. So the normal bubbas aren't just going to go bird hunting or after turkeys. It's too hard. It's for people who like the sport, who enjoy the sport of it. And I don't know what you guys think about that, but that's kind of where I'm trying to go with what I was saying.
I don't like the term sport. I'm going to be honest. I've never been a fan of using the term sport in hunting, because what we're doing is, the end result's fairly serious. Whereas fishing, fishing could be almost a sport because you have the ability to actually release the animal once you've obtained it. You're not going to release a stuck turkey.
Yeah. Okay. So what I mean by sport is pursuit.
But no, I get it. That's just my own 2 cents. I think that I hate using that word, but yeah, I agree with the essence of what you're saying.
So I'll kind of chime in a little bit and just say that, from my perspective, I hear a lot of people say, they can't eat the antlers and those kind of things, and they're hunting to fill their freezer. And look, I'm definitely not going to say that there aren't people out there that hunt just because they want the meat, and there's nothing wrong with that. I would say that to say that that's the reason the majority of people are hunting is probably a misnomer. I don't agree with that. I mean, even if you're as traditional guys, by the time we buy bow, arrows, broadheads, even if we're reusing them, buying our tags, buying gas, even if you're processing it yourself, you could probably go and buy meat from the grocery store cheaper. There is the element of, well, I know where this meat came from and it's clean, it doesn't have antibiotics and all that stuff. There is an element of that, but I think we do have to be realistic with ourselves and say that, the majority of us are out there hunting because we want to hunt. We want to pursue an animal. We want to challenge ourselves against that animal. And ultimately, I'm kind of on that with John on that. I mean, it's serious. You're taking an animal's life, but I get what you're saying, Nick. I'm not disagreeing with you. I just, I think sometimes the lines get muddied with everybody trying to be so politically correct that, most of us are not out there hunting because we need to feed our family from what we're going to bring home. And that's good for a lot of us because our families would starve.
Well, yeah, I mean, but pursuit's a better word for it anyway. But, I kind of get sport from sportsmen. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, but it's more of for me, what I mean is it's pursuit. It's like the pursuit of waterfowling, of turkey hunting, of upland hunting. It's not exactly like we all know what the ultimate goal is, but it's fun to do it, right? Like duck hunters like to get up at 3 a.m. and go trudge through mud and set decoys and with their buddies and get the boat set up and everything, and they live for that kind of thing. And turkey hunters like to put them to bed, and they like to get them at fly down and do all the calling like John and I are doing. And upland hunting, like they like to run their dogs, and they like to do things like that. And they like to, they love a partridge busting the brush, that kind of thing. I mean, it's the pursuit of it is what the goal is. There's a lot of different ways to get, there's easier ways to get it done, but these are very traditional ways,
Sure. And there's the activity aspect of it too.
Mm-hmm.
You may sit in a stand for hours, or in a blind for hours waiting on a whitetail, but somebody that's out waterfowling or squirrel hunting or rabbit hunting, there's a lot more action there. So it's, especially, and think about it from a kid's perspective. If you're going to try to get a kid interested in hunting, you want them doing something where there's going to be action. Otherwise, they're going to get bored and say, I'd rather be playing my Xbox.
Oh yeah.
But I definitely get what you're saying there.
Yeah, we have a lot of squirrel hunters around here, and I never, I've had hunts interrupted, but I never really get mad. I always get a kick out of a grandpa taking his kid out squirrel hunting, or taking his grandson out squirrel hunting, or granddaughter. It's, I mean, I loved it. I did it with my dad when I was a kid. I loved it. So anyway, but yeah, that's
well, and it's a connection to the way things used to be too, is the other part of it. I can certainly remember when the grocery store, depending on the income of the family, the grocery store may have been more of a supplemental thing, especially like on a farm or something. That the mainstay of the food was brought in by farming, gardening, and hunting. The grocery store was used to supplement that. Here, 30 years later, that's flip-flopped. I mean, the grocery store is now the source, and we're using hunting to supplement or I guess not supplement, but to be a cherry on top, I guess, if you want to call it that.
Right. That's a good observation. So, kind of getting into wrapping this up, John, I have one more question for you. Are we going with shotguns, or are we going with longbows?
I was going to ask the same question, but a little differently. So let's see what John answers, and then I'll have a follow-up maybe.
Well, I guess the harder question to answer would be which longbow.
Yeah, you're becoming quite the hoarder.
I have a problem. My wife will tell you that I have a problem.
And I honestly don't care what we hunt with as long as we're hunting it. That's fine with me.
I want to put just a little bit of a different spin on your question, Nick. So, John, how long's the Michigan turkey season for spring?
It's 6 weeks.
So obviously, I'm pretty sure I know you're really going to make an effort. You kind of already said you're dedicated to hunting with a longbow, but will you close out the last week or the last weekend of the season with a shotgun if you haven't connected with your bow?
I get 7 days.
I have 2.
Right.
John has 7.
Well, I mean, as far as if you take work out of the equation, I have 7 days because I'm hunting public land. And last year I started day 1 with a longbow and finished day 7 with a longbow. I had some opportunities, and I was taking my lumps. But nope, the shotgun stayed in the cabinet. Believe it or not, I did have shells in my pocket just because they're my lucky shells. They stay in the shell loops in my vest, but my shotgun was the better part of 30 miles away from me.
It's going to be fun either way.
And I will just say that I don't know if I'll even get out again pursuing turkeys. I'm sure I will get out in the woods, but I know both of you guys will. I know you're looking forward to it. And hey, I'll just say, you know what? I wish you the best of luck. I hope you both get birds this year, and both of you get them with your longbow. That would just be awesome.
It would.
That would kill killer. That would be a new feather in my hat.
I mean, if not, I'll just take pictures of John and write more stories about him. That's what I'm going to do.
And if I don't, I'll just have more pictures of me from Nick.
I've got like a John shrine on my phone and on my camera. Oh, there's another one of John looking at birds.
There's another one, John picking up the arrow that missed the bird.
Yeah, there's one of John missing the bird.
You guys are too funny. Well, I tell you, the biggest takeaway I think I've got from this is to go and actually download the 10th Legion audiobook. I'm gonna do that and probably listen to that some this weekend. So I appreciate that, guys. And John, I just want to say, thank you for participating tonight. Thank you for joining us. Really enjoyed talking to you, and look forward to the next time we can bring you on, and obviously the next time I can spend some time in the woods with you. Maybe it'll be maybe we'll figure out a way to get you down here, and you can hunt turkeys for as long as your heart desires in the spring, because we have a very long season.
That sounds like a good time to me. But I'll come back anytime. You let me know. We got other things we have to talk about. I mean, we got MLA, we've got fly fishing, we got all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, and actually something you said just a few minutes ago actually sparked a thought in my mind. I'm gonna save it for a later time, but it was actually just a little something you said that I went, wow, you know what? I don't think I've heard a podcast on that topic. So thank you for that. Nick, anything else, buddy?
No, man. This has been great. Always good to talk to John and you, and had fun.
All right, guys. Well, thank you, and again, good luck. Good luck in a few weeks, and keep me posted on your success in the woods. Take care, guys.
Will do.
Absolutely. You too.